wanted to put this service on this soon after I come back from my sabbatical. So it gave a great opportunity for me to speak about it. And in a Sunday morning service, there just wouldn't be space. So I'm very grateful for that opportunity. And it's the sort of thing you want to hear about sooner rather than later, really. So this is that opportunity. So for those of you who don't know so much, I've been away 10 weeks. I was away from, I think, September the 21st to the 30th of November. So 10 Sundays missing from here, I think, as well. And I'm grateful to the church here for giving me that space to be able to do that. I've been here 11 years now, 10 years as song pastor. It was about time, but still it's a cost to the church in allowing me to go. So I'm very grateful for that. And just before I begin, it's appropriate always to read something from the Bible. And I'm going to read a very familiar passage that Jesus told his disciples when he said this. Then Jesus said, "Come to me, all of you who are weary and carry heavy burdens, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you, let me teach you, because I am humble and gentle at heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy to bear, and the burden I give you is light." And if you want to encompass a bit of a sabbatical, that would be a nice reasoning for a sabbatical. Of course, Jesus is talking about release from our sins ultimately, but he could easily be talking about, in a slightly less profound way, just getting rest and getting time out. And certainly I found it necessary to do so. So that's the reason for it, getting fresh vision, invigoration, and coming back with sort of refreshed, really. So for the time ahead, and it's been a privilege to be able to do that. So I thought I'd take you through. I try to cut pictures down as much as I can. Maybe not very successfully, but I thought I'd do is I would go through a little bit about what I did for the main part of the sabbatical, and then come back to the time in India, in Mumbai and Bangalore, at the end, because that's quite a profound part of my sabbatical. So although that happened first, almost as soon as I went away, I went there, I thought I'll come back to that at the end, because that's probably the key part of this address, this presentation. So I had my 10 weeks, and a number of things. I had a number of objectives in mind. One to rest, one to get some vision, one to see new things, travel a bit, enjoy some of it, spend some time with the family, spend time with my father, and see some other churches as well, how they operate, what it's like, what the welcome's like, how I felt as an anonymous stranger, so I try to be as anonymous as possible, and also to spend a bit of time doing some research, and also a little bit of a look at my book as well. Hence, that's why I'm actually got it here tonight, because there is a link with the Ancient Kings and Everyday Lessons that I wrote last year. So I went to, when I wasn't away from London, I went to a number of different churches during the sabbatical. So I'll give you a little start. I went to the Riverside Church in Feltham. I went to the little church near my house on Powder Mill Lane, little Baptist church there. I went to Duke Street Baptist Church in Richmond. I went to the Vineyard Church in Richmond. And in the final week, so almost coming back, I went to Holy Trinity just up the road here as well. And then I also, I took the family out. I thought they needed 1 week break from the church. We went to Soul Survivor Church in Watford. So it's interesting to see. And in almost every one of those churches, I met someone I knew from the past who had either been coming here or with someone in Watford. It was actually people in my last post in Radlett. There was a few people in some way sad they're going there, because it means they're not going to the church in Radlett. Which, yeah, that's probably its own story. But yeah, so it was good to meet some different folks. So I think Lillian, for example, in Vineyard in Richmond. In fact, Vineyard in Richmond I was quite impressed by. Smaller than here, But I enjoyed the worship, I enjoyed the welcome, and I felt sort of quite at home there. I was quite impressed, actually. And also the sermon series they did, I've got hold of it. So that was the sort of thing I wanted to do. If there any inspiration, so we might be looking at Proverbs next year. So I was quite impressed with the series I saw there. So that was something that you sort of hope will happen during the time off. But I took some time up with my father, spent 3 days staying in the guest suite in the assisted living places in. That was obviously important to me. Spent time with the family as well, especially over the half term. Spent a long time away from them, and I did want to get back in there, and I was over a month in total away. Longest at any time was almost 2 weeks. I think that's about the deadline. I don't want to be away ever for more than 2 weeks. It does start to think, yeah, I do need to get home. And I also did a little bit of work on my book. So I spent 3 days with Hamad Bailey, the husband of the Vicar of Holy Trinity, because he's got some nice sound equipment. And so we've done my book is an audio book now. I've sent it off. There's a little bit of tinkering he still needs to do, apparently, according to the publishers. But we're nearly there with that, so that's done. And I also completed an extra chapter of the book, which I've already posted on the book's Facebook page on Jehoshaphat. Flawed but faithful. It's a king I should have talked about earlier. And I'm maybe going to do Ahaz. I've done half a chapter on him. He bad to the bone, not a great guy. So they're extra chapters potentially of the book. And so those are some of the things I wanted to do while I was away. But now a little bit of chat about the travels. So I spent a day in Sheffield, or 24 hours in Sheffield with Church Army, which I'm still a member of. That's who I trained with as an evangelist. And I went to a little one-day conference, or 24-hour conference there. That couple, the chap there, Phil, he was in my, rather like Joe Farnage who preached this morning, he was also in my year at the Church Army College. And it's great to see him and Helen. I went up on the tram to see them in their house, took a couple of hours out. They're going through some challenges at the moment, so good to pray for them. But it was really good to see them. I also saw the new boss of Church Army. When he heard my name, he said, "I've been looking at your church's website. I was impressed by it," and he couldn't remember what. But he said, "I'm going to come and visit." So at some point, whether it's on a Sunday when you'll be around or whether it's another day, but something has impressed the CEO of Church Army, and well done everyone, because that's good. It's come to his attention, and I was stunned. I was like, okay, that's wonderful. So that was encouraging, and it's good to get a bit of fellowship, meet some people again that I haven't seen in years. But I got the worst stomach problem I've ever had that night. I almost thought I was going to die. I almost was on the point of ringing 999. I was in that much agony. I thought I'd get ill in India. Came back to Sheffield. It's something to do with being in the north. I was really bad, and I literally had to come and I staggered home with loads of Imodium and colour, almost fainted when I got home. It was really hard going. In India, thank God, I was very disciplined with water, which you have to be. And I slightly queasy on the Sunday morning. It might have been a bit of a spiritual attack before preaching, but otherwise in India I was fine. You come back to England and get ill. So that was a surprise. So that was second. I also took a sabbatical week out at a college called Union Theological College in Bridgend in South Wales. It used to be called the Wales Evangelical School of Theology or West. I did a week there where again, time out, very few people there, a relaxed environment, and I spent a long time in the library, just coming up. Library. We won't show the whole video, it's quite long, but the library basically goes on and on with all sorts of Christian theological books. That's enough, probably, Kath. You don't want to hear my voice on there either. Got enough of me here. But I spent a good week there, and I researched the Bible translations. Because anyone who comes here regularly will know that our Bibles are pretty ropey. And we've got that thorny question of which Bible translation do we use next time. So I researched a lot into how the Bible translations came in, what the reasoning is for them, and then we will be discussing it in the new year. What translation, whether we get the new NIV, which is better than the old one, or whether we get another version, which is maybe slightly easier reading on the English, or maybe one that's more literal in its translation. But it was good to do that and just understand more. And sabbaticals often involve learning more and understanding more, so that the pastor can answer questions on these things in a better way. So that was a very useful week there. I also went to the church which meets at their chapel, then took some time with the family, and then I went up to Scargill House in North Yorkshire for 2 weeks. Scargill House is a sister community and conference centre of Lee Abbey, where I met Maya in Devon, but this one's in North Yorkshire. I was there pretty much 2 weeks, and I worked on the estate, did some physical work for them. You can just about see the buildings in the background. That's the lovely valley that it's in the Yorkshire Dales. It's a wonderful aspect. It's a wonderful place to spend a couple of weeks. It was quite wet, but it was a very pleasant time. And I spent time there with the community, spent time with the guests who were there, did a bit of time with some ministry coaching, had a one-to-one with a ministry coach, which was quite challenging but interesting, and just enjoyed a bit of Yorkshire banter as well with some of the guys around. It was a pleasant time. So next one, Kath. And there's the view from the house itself, just looking down into the valley. You can see there was already a frost there in the beginning of November. Okay, next one. Thanks. And that's the chapel. Very, very impressive building. Lovely place to worship in. Worship there for 2 Sundays. Led prayers as well. Got involved in doing stuff. And then the view from inside. There we go. So it's a wonderful, almost Scandinavian structure building. And the next one. But of course I was also there to work, to do some estate work, which is good, because it's physical work when I'm doing so much mental work usually, and I loved being on the estate at the Abbey 20 odd years ago, so it's good to be back there. Just one back, if possible. But that's the walled garden, and that wall is 20 feet high. Some wall, isn't it? 2 skins with all sorts of mortar in the middle. And about 2 days after I arrived, no coincidence I don't think, it collapsed. So one of the jobs was to put that fence up and, to stop people getting near it, because obviously that's on danger of collapsing and stop the deer getting in. But they've got a massive repair bill on with that. There's a lovely walled garden, the grounds are wonderful. As you can see, I did some work. Apart from that, I was doing some strimming. And as you can probably just about tell from that picture, I got absolutely soaked. It was absolutely belting down, but you don't mind, because you're just doing some good work and just improving the place. And it was great to be back strimming, chainsawing, and doing all that other sort of manual labour I enjoyed in the past. And you don't get much chance in London to do. So I also had a few days off where I was able to do some walks, I think. Yeah, that's called Penny Kent. It's one of the big 3 in Yorkshire. It's on the Pennine Way, and I did walk straight up that bit on the right, up there. It is steep, it is very, very windy. It's a bit of a challenge getting up there, but it's a nice feeling when you get to the top. And I did enjoy doing a few fell walks, just to relax. So that was my time in Yorkshire. Happy to get home. Spent some time with my father as well as with Ma and the kids. And then I had a 1-day little jolly to Dublin. I think it's the next one. There's the tram in Dublin. Just took the flight from Heathrow, came back in through London City and it was to go to a conference with Living Leadership. And Living Leadership have been invaluable to me during the lockdowns. Every 2 weeks there was the opportunity to get some teaching, join with other pastors and other church leaders online, encourage one another, pray for one another. I really badly needed that. So I'm very grateful to them. It's great to it's a bit of an extravagant day, going to Dublin and back in the day, but it was enjoyable to have that experience. So that was, as it were, that part of my time there in the sabbatical. Sorting some stuff in my book, doing some research, taking some time out, enjoying sabbatical time, meeting lots of interesting and fascinating people, the stuff in the churches. But probably the biggest thing I did was to go to India at the beginning of the sabbatical. And this is the pod in Bahrain Airport. It's like you're sleeping in a box. That's where I was sleeping. Oh, in a cupboard.
Airport hotel in Bahrain.
It's a desert, basically. If you just pause up there, Kath. So that's come in a bit on it, but basically before I got to India, it was quite tricky about whether I'd ever get there. First I was worried about whether it would cause major trouble for our people there, because I basically went there. The main reason was to see our mission links, the Bombay Revival and Prayer Band, and with the BJP being the party in charge of India, and particularly in charge of the Maharashtra state where Mumbai is, the sort of Hindu fanatics, they don't like, well, they don't particularly like Christians being around at all, in all honesty, but they certainly don't like Hindu converts to Christianity. That's a big no-no. And they don't particularly like foreign influence coming in and sort of helping the churches and Christian organisations out. So I was a little bit nervous as a church leader from England coming there and the implications it would be on them and their ministry. So I did ask them, is it okay if I come? If it's not, please tell me not to. They said, oh, we want you to come. So I set about coming. Rather naively, I thought, either you don't need a visa for India, or if you do, you can get it in the airport. Because in Nepal, you can get it in Kathmandu airport. And I thought, I don't know why, I just equated the two, which is very naive of me. Unfortunately, I was at the tennis club one day, and one of the guys at the tennis club was going to Mumbai as well, and he said, and I said to him, and I was actually going to hook up with him when I was there. And I said, so I'll see you in Mumbai, I'm going, this is the dates I'm going. He said, no, I'm not going, my wife can't get a visa. I was like, well, why not? And he said, it's difficult, where's your visa? And I went, what visa? So thank God he said that to me. And I had about 2 weeks left. And he said, you'll never get it in time because you've got to go to the consulate. But it's not just going to the consulate, you've got to get an appointment. It takes weeks to get the appointment. Then they've got to make a decision, and etc. You'll never get there. So I thought, well, I'll check online. Checked online for the e-visa. Sounds all right. You try and find United Kingdom, it's not on there. They've removed it. I think they're just about to bring it back in, but they've removed it. Some strop or something. But I have a New Zealand passport. And a New Zealand passport is invaluable. Not only does it look the best passport in the world, there's nothing more stylish than it, but you can get an e-visa with it within 72 hours. And so, thank God, because if I didn't have that citizenship, that would mean I would have lost the 500 or so pounds on the flight, plus all the, it just messed everything up. So thank God I could use this. But I tell you what, applying for the visa was, one, scary, and two, it was like they wanted me to take citizenship of India out. They wanted to know where my dad was born, where my mum was born, where my wife was born, what my job was, what I'd done in the past, what this. So wow. And with the job, again, you're worried, pastor, minister of religion, not the best. I'm not going to lie, sorry. So I started asking advice of the chief executive of Asia Link. What do I do? He said, get a Faraday bag. I should have brought it with me. It's this bag which has got a particular material in it, and when you put the mobile phone in it, no signal is emitted. Because you didn't know this, that mobile phones emit a signal even when they're turned off. And also, when you go to a foreign country, they know a foreign phone's there. So I put it in the Faraday bag at certain times. But with all that, and then I had to put these people, Pastor Gabriel and Bethella, or Rani as they call it, it's like a pet name, her name's Bethella, the one that sends all the emails out. Rani means queen, by the way, for any of you who don't know that. It's like a pet name. But I didn't want them getting in trouble. I didn't want to be deported myself, because if they didn't let me in, they'd send me to New Zealand, not here. Which would be and I really didn't want trouble for them, because they've got to stay there after I've gone safely out of the way. And it's quite dicey sometimes in Mumbai, I think, with the trouble. And when I was out there, Pastor Gabriel was actually involved in advocating for pastors who've been either had their ministry shut down or put in prison. And they're actually getting involved with legal stuff with the other pastors to try and make representations before the local government. It's serious there. There is serious persecution. And things are different from 20 years ago. So people went there 20 years ago, it wasn't the same. The government was not as hostile as it is today, particularly in places like Mumbai, where I got some advice off the Asia Link CEO. I got some advice off Bernie. He said, don't bring loads of books, just bring 4, 2 in each bag. Don't make it look like you're doing mass preaching. It won't go well. So I went with a bit of trepidation. Got my visa, of course, and went off. And I went, as I said, via Bahrain, via that weird pod. I arrived at Bahrain airport at 6:30 in the morning off a nice Dreamliner flight, lovely new planes, which was very pleasant. Had a nice chat with an Indian lady who was sitting near me, was able to tell her that I was a pastor. She said, I've never met a pastor in my life. She lives in England, But she was Hindu, but really more attracted to Buddhism. But I was able just to say a bit about why don't you search out for Jesus yourself, just see how he meets. It's just a short opportunity, as I was mentioning last week, just to witness to someone in that time. Got to Bahrain Airport, 6:30 in the morning. Flight's not till 2:30. I don't sleep on planes at all, so I needed that pod just because 8 hours just waiting. It's a nice terminal, but not that nice. And so eventually, at about 10 p.m, I got into Mumbai Airport. Pastor Gabriel picked me up. We started going at 11 p.m. Took about an hour and a half to get to Panvel, where I was staying. I was staying right out on the edge of Mumbai, past Navi or New Mumbai, right out. And the traffic at 11 p.m. at the airport is horrendous. Now, a couple of things about Mumbai stood out for me. One, it makes London look small, 19 million people. Two, it makes London look quiet. But it does, it really does. So it was fascinating, and if you've ever travelled in such places on the roads, I quite like. I feel I'm a reasonably confident driver, but I don't think I would be there, because you're like that far from cars, mopeds, bikes, people, because there's no crossing places. No crossing places. So the people are just everywhere. There's no respect for, well, I said there's no respect for the pedestrians. The cars actually are really good at avoiding them, thank God. But yeah, and if there's 3 lanes, there'll be 6 lots of traffic. There won't be 3, there'll be 6. It's amazing, just every inch is used up. So it's something else, it's fascinating. And their horns are on the whole time, mainly to let you know they're there, not as a rebuke. It's all good nature, that almost all good natured. So that was an experience. You know, wow, it's midnight and it's packed. What's going on here? Even London's not that busy, but not that time. So got into the hotel very late. They insisted on giving me some food, whatever. And then the next day, Pastor Gabriel took me to a place called Sion, which is officially in the centre of Mumbai, but really it's north of the centre, because the centre is actually in the southern part of the city. And so the next picture, there's the slums as we go over one of the bridges. You see them? It's one of the toughest parts of the city. You've got all sorts of corrugated iron shelters and things, and it's quite a culture shock to see such a place, what they call busties, I think. So we went past that and we went on the way to Sion, which itself is a little bit of a tough area. So I think there's another video cut. Sorry about my finger, I'm a dreadful person with this. See the busties. And you see Pastor Gabriel there, just looking back at the camera, wondering why I haven't moved. It was also very hot, about 30 to 32 every day, but according to my phone it feels like 37, 38. It was quite stifling. Thank God for air conditioning in my hotel room and in the car that I was driven in a lot. But when you went outside for too long, it was quite uncomfortable. I think it was right at the end of the monsoon before the second summer, so it was really quite a hot time of year to travel. So the next one, I think we've got a picture. So Pastor Gabriel took me in to see some people from Tamil Nadu being baptised. And I'm sorry I haven't got a picture of the baptism, although I did try and not show faces in that. I was a bit nervous about that sort of thing. But I think 4 or 5 people got baptised in a tiny little pool. Just literally stepped down and went in. It wasn't as big as this nice one here. And I was able to just share with them a little bit and spend the time with them, and just, most of these people again are Hindu converts, which is exactly what the BJP does not want. But thank God, because they're hungry for the gospel, even though this persecution, this is New Testament stuff. This is New Testament stuff. It's what it was written for, those who are suffering for their faith. Okay, so next picture. This is the hotel I was staying at. That sign, you'd have to do that to see properly, I think. It's the Garden Hotel in Panvel, and that's the view I had. It's got the most amazing view in the world from the breakfast room, but it was pleasant enough staying there. One thing, the place I was not touristy at all, absolutely not touristy. And whenever I went to the bank to try and get money out of my international debit card, I think there's one place finally took it, which was great. Even in the hotel, when I tried to pay at the end, they didn't take it. But I'm very grateful. It's a shame she's not here tonight, but I hope she does watch the video. I'm very grateful to Blessy from our church. And she only knew me a couple of months, literally, and she gave me her Indian debit card. That's not bad, is it? I mean, it's impressive, really. So I went, and I had to use it a lot. I must have spent about £300 on it, because I just couldn't use my own, because it was too difficult, because they're just not set up for international stuff. So I went around with a debit card named Blessy Anusha Gotla. And I just thought, if someone stops me and I'm taking money out, this could be a problem, really, because that is some messed up transgender stuff to say I identify as an Indian woman. Well, I'm going to end up in prison here. But I'm so grateful to her, and she helped me out a little bit with the phone and getting hooked up with an Indian SIM, which is obviously very useful, because otherwise, trying to get on the internet is very, very costly. So I got all that sorted with Indian SIM on my phone as well, but it was really good. And actually it was a really good witness, because when I was speaking to this guy on the flight on the way back, this Scottish guy, and he said, "Where were you?" I said, "I'm in Mumbai." I was in Mumbai. And I said, he said, "How did you get by the payments?" I said, "Well, actually an Indian lady in the church gave me a debit card." And he said, "Wow, that restores my faith in human nature." That was a witness to him. That was an honest witness to him. So we need to give Blessy some massive credit for her generosity and trust in me for that. So that was great too. So anyway, that's where I stayed. Spent obviously a fair bit of my time. Pastor Gabriel, by the way, I don't know how he lives. I honestly say this, I don't know how he lives. He's got this huge organisation, Bombay Revival and Prayer Band. He has a house, I'll show you near the end. This is his son, Joshua. He's Joshua, isn't it? I think it's Joshua. Check the board. I think it's Joshua, who met me, and he took me on a tourist day. I didn't have one tourist day. I had to pretend to be a tourist. I had gone on a tourist visa. But how he does it, he's a retired insurance salesman, basically, Pastor Gabriel. And then his mother-in-law set up this charity, and he got involved with that. And basically, he really has bankrolled a lot of the stuff because of this pension and the money. Well, first his wage and now his pension. He gets a very good pension from his insurance company, and it pays for all sorts of things. And if without that, so God does use the means by which we do our secular work. We must always remember that for the good of His kingdom, if we allow it to be used for His kingdom. But the hours he keeps are crazy. He's always got something on. He's got the mission station at Sion. He's got other works in the slums. He's got his own church that he runs. He's got the orphanage and the school in his house, virtually, or in the compound, which is why he's moved so far out of Mumbai to be able to afford such a big compound. His daughter's got Down syndrome. He's sick a lot of the time. And he's got all that. And you think, how does this fight? He seems to start at 6 every morning, and he was dropping off at midnight. And he doesn't have a day off. We need to pray for him. We really need to pray for him. But what he yearns for is that they don't need any support from foreigners. That's not being mean, but one, it's practical, because it's getting more and more difficult in India to get support from foreign organisations. More and more questions are asked. And secondly, there's a lot of wealthy people in India. I know there's a lot of poverty, a lot of extremely wealthy people in India. And he thinks surely we should be able to sustain our own missions as well. So I like it. I like that attitude, not of, we want to just take from everyone, but how can we be supporting of ourselves? I think that's wonderful. So but this is his son Joshua. He gave me a lift. We did our tourist day. We went to see various tourist sites in the city. And the first one we went to by mistake. I said, let's go here for lunch. The first one was this one. That which looks like a cathedral. It's the train terminus. India and trains are famous together, and that's what used to be called the Victoria train terminus. It's now called I can never remember the freedom fighter's name.
Chhatrapati Shivaji.
Thank you very much, Sue. He's on everything, this guy. And he's almost a god in Mumbai, isn't he? He's idolised there. But amazing structure, and that isn't the only bit of the station. There's about 4 bits like that. Wow.
He's a freedom fighter. He was a freedom fighter.
Against who?
British.
So yeah, that's right. Then we went to, just by chance, went to the Leopold Cafe. It was in the Leopold Cafe that I don't want to be, I try not to be contentious, but I do want to ask probing questions. And I actually said to Joshua, I said, the Queen had just died, hadn't she, very recently? We had the funeral just before I went off on sabbatical. And I said, how was the Queen seen in India? Was she seen, are people in mourning, do you think? Or, they sad at her loss, or did they see her as a symbol of imperial oppression? And he said, mainly the latter. Which I accepted. I'm not going to argue with that. But it's interesting to get the different perspectives, and I think it's important. That's one of the things about travelling, is to get the perspectives from different people's side of things. Actually, not to diss the Queen, by the way, to be honest, but it's just how are people viewed in different places, because depending where you are in the world, one person will look amazing and in one place, and then in another place they won't. Mikhail Gorbachev, who also died recently, didn't he? I think just before the Queen. In Britain, he's looked on well, isn't he? In the US, he's looked on well. Russia, not so well. Azerbaijan, where I spent a long time, I spent 5 weeks there about 20 years ago, he's hated because he sent the tanks in. And the Avenue of the Martyrs is actually there for people killed by Gorbachev's, under Gorbachev's orders. So you can imagine what his thoughts are there. Isn't it interesting to get different perspectives? We do need to broaden our minds sometimes. But this also was it's an old cafe which was mainly frequented by foreigners. You see those are bullet holes. They've been kept there. I don't know if you remember the terrorist attack by the Islamic State or whatever in the Taj Mahal Hotel in Mumbai a number of years ago. The first place they shot up and killed people in was the very cafe we sat in. And they're kept there as a reminder of the atrocity, but also as a reminder that Indians stand firm against terrorism. I like that history. That was a fruit we went in and I said, let's just go in here. He said, that was a good pick. So anyway, there we go. So next one. This is the gateway to India, very famous monument. We went past that. And we also went over to some caves with all sorts of Hindu gods in the harbour. It's about an hour ferry trip each way. Had some interesting conversations on that ferry. I started getting worried that people were probing me too much. Does someone want to get too much information? You start to get paranoid a little bit. But still some fascinating conversations. So there's the view from the boat coming back across the harbour. Okay. There we go. And that's that in the background. You can see the gateway to India far right, and then right in the middle of the background is the Taj Mahal Hotel. Impressive, to say the least. And those boats are the sort of thing that we were actually on. But that was an interesting day out as a sort of tourist just for the day, and good to spend time with Pastor Gabriel and Marnie's son. Okay, next picture. This is when we went to go to one of the church prayer meetings in a very, very poor part of the city. It sits basically an alleyway between the houses, with all the washing, the sewage and everything there.
Houses are quite nice. Yeah, they're very nice.
This is another tough part. This is probably the slum area again. We went on a Friday night. There was a prayer meeting in one of the churches, and you're basically on an alleyway between all the houses, all the washing out, all the sort of sewage and stuff, and it's just everywhere. But the houses look nice inside quite often. Kids all around. Spotlights, but he's got spotlights. Those ones, yeah. There's this one right up here, actually. And then this one up here. turn that one off. There we go. Okay, keep going. That's not particularly bad lighting, it really was that dark. There was a Hindu festival going on for most of our time. There was a lot of music and stuff and things going on. But eventually we turned off that little street and we ended up in someone's house, I think it is, but which was doubling up as a church. And it's here, I think. There you go. See how packed it was. You could not breathe in there, and it was hot as well. And everyone just on the ladder upstairs, just crammed in on the floor. It was again mainly Hindu converts again. People who are not particularly literally. I did a little talk from one of my. Tried to do a simple talk. I don't think I did, but tried to do a simple talk from one of the chapters of my book, and there's the interpreter. That's just a little talk. And then they wanted me to anoint everyone with oil afterwards, and there was a lot of people in that building, so it took a while. And so I anointed each person with oil and prayed for them. And next picture, Cap. Yeah, there you go. And on a couple of occasions, there were some serious demonic manifestations. I've not put the videos in, but I'll show you mine and a few others. But there was some serious stuff going on. You know, because you're opening yourself up to some of the Hindu stuff. You're opening yourself up to some serious spiritual stuff. And one woman, I literally fought her on the floor to stop her braining herself on the wall, because she was like, you know, like that. And it took a while for anyone to come over to me. I'm like, it's all out. But wow, it was scary. Unless she's putting a serious act on. Wow. And then another person just screaming when I was trying to pray for someone, going crazy. You know, we prayed for them. And that second lady particularly, she was in her right mind when she left, thank God. And she said to me, come around for dinner. I mean, she was with her husband at least, thank God. But couldn't quite do that. But it was nice to see her in her right mind after the mess. But one thing I noticed in Mumbai, people are hungry for God. And the spiritual realities are more vivid than here. And you may say that's subjective on my part, maybe it is, but that's what I perceive. The spiritual realities are somehow more only open. It's somehow more real. There's a bigger cost, of course, to being a Christian. There's a harshness to life as well. But wow, okay, so thanks. And then they want me to even pray over the oil or some water, I think that might have been. I don't know quite why, but I did. And then there's myself with Pastor Gabriel having a samosa afterwards. He said it was hot, that samosa. So they had to grab me some lassi pretty quickly. Because when he said this is mild as anything, it wasn't. And he actually said, that's hot. So that was interesting. Anyway, my stomach. This is one of the Hindu festivals. That was quite late at night by then as well, and it was in a place where somehow people are still taking their cars down the road. You don't know how, because everyone's there. You think, how did people not get run over? Anyway, it was interesting. I love it, to be honest. I do love it. I love the sort of the dilemma of it. It's just fascinating. It's cool. But I was aware of Pastor Gabriel's extreme pressure. he wanted me to meet his wife. Of course, I wanted to see her. She's my main link. I get all the emails of her. But each time he wanted to get me home to this house, something came up, and then his daughter got in and got put in hospital. And so it was really hard to meet her. And then one day he said, I don't think I can meet you. I said, please don't pressure yourself with me. You've got enough on your plate. And what I did was I took a little electric rickshaw and I went to the train station. So I'm not going to India and not going on the train. And you just get a picture of people sitting in the doorways on the train. And they'll do that when it's moving as well. I didn't see anyone riding on the roof. I was disappointed with that. Here's a little picture from me being on the train. And you can see there's no door, it's just a doorway. So I'm hanging out there. Thank you. There's another one where I actually look across the side, it's exactly the same on the side, there's a massive great gap. But you know, no one jumps out, why would you? Took Basti again, those places with those cobbled down sort of corrugated iron shell, they tend to be migrant workers. That was interesting. You know, people would come in from other parts of the country, they just do a few months and then they just set something up, some very, very basic shelter, and then they move on again. That was interesting to be answered about that. But I did take the bus, and I took it there was another day when, again, Pastor Gabriel was really busy, so I took a bus way out into the country from Panvel, and I ended up going through a monsoon. I think I showed some people on WhatsApp the monsoon. It really was very heavy rain. Got to this village, got soaked, and eventually got into a place where there were these guys who had some incredibly cheap food, and they all wanted my picture. That really was, in Mumbai no one was worried really, but there they actually wanted my picture, they wanted my Facebook account, they wanted everything, so they all took pictures of me. That was the place where I got most sort of excitement at my presence, so to speak. But also on the bus, I'll tell you one wonderful experience. I was sitting on the bus, and as I said, it's good reading your Bible on the bus. I sat on the bus reading my Bible, and a young woman came and sat next to me. He said, "Oh, that's a Bible reading, you're a Christian?" I said, "Yeah." And she said, "Oh, so am I." And I said, "Oh, good, nice to meet you." But having said that, I was a bit defensive because I'd had this awkward experience on the boat where I was worried that people were probing me, or there was even some, you get paranoid that, the secret police around, or something like that. And because when I was at the hotel, they were kept asking, "Where's my address? Who am I seeing? Where's my address in New Zealand?" And I kept saying, "I haven't got one. My mum's from New Zealand, but I don't live there." "Oh, but that's true." Well, I had to use the passport. And in the end, I realised that it wasn't them. They were getting pressure from whoever they were trying to report that to. So it was a little bit worrying about too much my link with this mission organisation as well. So this woman, and I was a bit defensive with her. In the end, I gave her my number, but I sort of went, "Oh, it's brilliant," and I sort of said it really quickly. She did get it though. She did get in touch with me. But she was one of the most impressive people I've met. She must have been like 20. Theologically, she was mature as a Christian like anything. She was just talking about how we need to live for God, and we don't know how long we've got. Things like that you don't expect. You might have a bit of prosperity gospel or a bit of, "Oh, God answers all our prayers," but it was much deeper than that. There was a deepness to her faith. There was a passion to her faith. There was an interest she was fascinated. Obviously, I said I was a pastor. That was and she'd moved to Mumbai to study to be a lawyer, and she wants to be a lawyer so she can help her people and advocate for them, because it's one of the things that Christians need in India as lawyers. I thought, wow, that was impressive. I was touched. I thought, that's I thought, it was almost in all of that impressive faith. But what an experience, just sitting on the bus with my Bible. Thank God for those experiences. So that was good, and it was good to take that sort of risk to adventure out on my own. I would always want to do that. I like to do things on my own accord, as Maya will tell you. And then we got to Sunday, and New Life Church of the Crawley, another part of the city. This is where Gabriel is actually the pastor, so I was able to do the main talk on that Sunday service. And that's in another service in Hindi, although they do some of it in English. There's me again with the interpreter, and there you can see the people in the church. Again, a passion for God, a hunger for God. I stayed around for a bit of the youth meeting afterwards, a sort of teenage meeting, and they just listen rapt for 20 minutes while someone preaches at them. Don't think it will quite happen here. But, you know, they're so hungry for the Lord. It was so encouraging to see. I was always jealous. Can you bring a few of them back? Because it was great. One back, Kath. That's the next picture. Yeah, so it was wonderful to share with them. And I actually said to Pastor Gabriel, do you get foreign preachers in a lot? And he said, no, I don't want them. He said, because what I don't want is the people in the church almost going and almost becoming dependent on them. So one, I was very honoured he let me come. But I think two reasons for that. One is, as I was telling everyone in India, not just in India, but around my sabbatical, Indians are the biggest number, it's the biggest nationality in our church. English, and then I said, English is second. Indians are first and English is second. So I am in a church which has a good number of people from India. And secondly, we're not a big place. We're hardly a big player who are going to suddenly bankroll them. So I think I was quite a safe person to be there. But it was a privilege to preach on my book. I preached on Hezekiah, I think, on that Sunday, and just wonderful to be with them and to join with them. But again, how does he sustain his work and the pressure that's on him? And so this was the next picture that, we just I insisted on seeing the rest of the family. I thought, I cannot come here and not see Bethella, Rani. And I want to meet Rebecca as well, the daughter who was in hospital. And she had just improved a little bit by then, but Rani had got so stressed, she had actually been taken in herself. So it was quite a stressful time, to say the least. And I was able to spend some time with them. I was lucky to get in, because again, what's a foreigner on a tourist visa doing in a hospital, visiting someone? It's not normal. But anyway, no one challenged me, so we walked straight in. And there were some other family members there. And it was great just to spend the time and finally meet the lady who writes all the emails. It was a privilege to see her. And I was able, hopefully respectfully, to give a bit of a lecture to Gabriel at the time. Just say, I'm going to do a Jethro here. You're Moses. Please get some help. You can't sustain this. And thank God for his insurance and for his insurance company and his pension, because it means that they can get a private room in the hospital for Rebecca whenever she gets ill. Otherwise, there's no way they can afford it. So, but what a family, and what an example, and it was really a privilege. And then I was able to get to his house. And my wife would come and I said, I need to see your house and the compound, because of things. It took ages to get it. So the last day, we got to see the orphanage, the girls at the orphanage. See how they love him. They wrap by him. We just missed Father Abraham and many sons, they sang. They're about to sing a hymn song. Wonderful. I thought I wasn't going to get there, but thank God we did. And then there's the school that's on the same compound, and on the classrooms, and I think the next one, that's upstairs. I got a picture of one of the dormitories, and I don't know, I didn't take the picture. I thought I had in one of their actual rooms, but that's upstairs in the corridor where the bedrooms are, so couldn't quite get that. And then the school bus they used to collect people from English school, and then finally, there's Pastor Gabriel in his own home there. Again, I don't know how he does it, but please pray for him. Please pray for the family. Please pray for protection from the authorities. They have to make sure everything is absolutely right, because they will be closed down if everything isn't exactly as it should be. And pray for protection in terms of the workload he puts on himself as well. And then he drove me to the airport the next day. At Mumbai Airport, that's the Thali. That's the Thali, isn't it? That's the Thali. So it was nice to have a little bit of Farley at Mumbai Airport. And I flew internal flight with Indigo to Bengaluru, areas, to meet one of our church members, Burley. That's him that's us now in the flat that he's now moved into. He's there, and his mum's very ill now. She's got dementia, I think, so he's trying to look after his mum and sort of arrange that. So Burley picked me up from the airport. Got this little internal flight, hour and a half with Indigo through to Bengaluru, and there we are with Burley's pastor and another guy, and they work for a Bible translation organisation. There's some leaflets at the back, you can grab one if you want. They work with translating the Bible into some of the very small tribal languages of the small tribal groups in India, just trying to make the Bible even more accessible to more and more people. A great work, and really encouraging to meet Christians there, down in the south in Bengaluru in Karnataka province. And here's Burley's. I think this is a bit of a road with Burley Drive. People just walking everywhere. They have to. Nowhere else to go. Vehicles everywhere, and you take your life in your hands and you cross the road as well. But yeah, it was an experience. That's probably not the best video I could have taken. Whenever I wanted to take a good video of it being really chaotic, the chaos had just finished and it was more sedate. I could have taken a better one. There we go. There's the restaurant called Crosstown, his restaurant, and inside there we are eating. He gave me all his best food. Interestingly, he's made most of his workers are from the far northeast of India, Nagaland, Mizoram, those sorts of provinces over the top of Bangladesh and around the side, and they look Oriental. I thought they were from the Philippines or somewhere in Southeast Asia, but because their look was much more Oriental, or possibly Nepal or Bhutan or something. Like they're from the northeast, so Burley employs them. But one of the things, and I said this last week, that Burley's done, and it was very moving, was that during the lockdowns, he was actually very instrumental in the Olive Branch, which he was involved with in his previous incarnation here with the homeless in Hounslow. And during the lockdowns, obviously in India, you've not got the same social security, you've not got the same safety net for people when they've not got work. So you've got people who really were destitute. You're going to die of hunger. And Burley went out in the street with loads and loads of rice with egg in it for a bit of protein and went and fed the people in the city. Isn't that glorious? Isn't that wonderful thing he's doing? So it was wonderful to spend time with Burley, and he looked after me well, gave me a nice place to stay above the restaurant, and then he drove me back, and we went back to Mumbai Airport. Had a massive long layover, but I didn't want to bother Pastor Gabriel again, but I'm not having him pick me up. Stayed there, and then got the plane back to Bahrain. Spent a nice night in the hotel, which is right in the departure lounge. Lovely place to stay, expensive but lovely. And then that's a little picture as the plane took off. You see it really is a desert, Bahrain, there in the Middle East. And then, as I sort of briefly alluded to earlier, I had the great opportunity to witness to a Scottish guy on the plane. Guy working with, he works with ships, with engineering on ships. He works in all sorts of fascinating countries in the world. He'd just been in Oman, and he'd come back via Bahrain to get on the plane, and we chatted quite a bit. Then he asked me why I was in Bahrain. I said, well, I wasn't really. I was in Mumbai. I'm a pastor on Sabbatical, and I was visiting mission links and Christians in Mumbai and seeing what it's like there. And he was interested enough. You wonder how interested a person's going to be when you start saying that. But he kept the conversation. I started watching a video, a film, and he kept the conversation. I think this is great. So we chatted about all sorts of things. We've got some common interests in Scotland. And then I talked a bit about my book. He started looking it up on his phone. The big thing, and I took a bit long to do this. We were chatting about faith generally, and then I said, what about you? Where do you stand? Always right. Should have done this earlier, but where do you stand? And I said, look, you need to test out the resurrection, because that's what the Christian faith stands or falls on. Was Jesus resurrected? Is the resurrection real? What other plausible explanation is there for the body being missing and for what happened to the disciples afterwards, the change in them? I said, go and research it yourself. Not sure if I mentioned Case for Christ with Lee Strobel, great book, where he actually looks at the different alternatives. I said, go and check it for yourself. Read one of the Gospels. And I just pray that God will touch his heart. A guy called Thomas. And I just pray that that will have borne fruit as well. But a wonderful experience. And yeah, as I said, I learned a lot. And you come back wiser and more grateful for things as well, but also with a renewed respect for where people are and what it costs to be a Christian in so many parts of the world. And it was while I was in India that Brother Andrew died. From Open Doors, the guy that smuggled the Bibles all around the world. He was a great example, of course. And thank God for the opportunity that has been given. Again, there's some things on the back table if you want to have a look. You want to have a look at my passport. Oh yeah, in Bahrain Airport on the way back, went in the British queue with my. I did have a British passport because I'm trying to come into Heathrow with a New Zealand passport before. It's not a good idea because they do stop you. And I went in with my New Zealand passport. They said, "Oh, there's a queue for Brits," and I thought, "Well, I'll go and I can always get my British passport out." When they saw my New Zealand passport, the woman, "Oh, this is good." I thought she was going to say, "Why are you in this queue?" And I'd have got mine. And you know what she did? She said, "Wow, this is good." And she went and she handed it around to all her colleagues. This is the best passport I've ever seen, so it's not just me saying it. I always like to see a new passport. So it's good, opens doors. I should have said, what about the upgrade? But I'm glad I didn't, because I wouldn't have had the chance to witness to that guy. And that's more important than an upgrade, isn't it? By miles. Amen.